and welcome back to my channel. It has taken some time, but I'm finally here to do this review. For a few days there, I honestly contemplated not bothering to do this review. I didn't feel like it was worth the time or effort. But then again, I'm really trying to push myself to not slack off. I'm trying to force myself to put in a bit more effort. So I have a lot of things to say, so I'm just gonna jump right into it and yeah, let's just get on with the review. Fantasy Island is a 2020 American supernatural horror film directed by Jeff Wadlow and written by Chris Roach, Gillian Jacobs, and Wadlow, based on ABC's 1977 television series of the same name. The enigmatic Mr. Rourke makes the secret dreams of his lucky guests come true at a luxurious but remote tropical resort. But when the fantasies turn into nightmares, the guests have to solve the island's mysteries in order to escape with their lives. So I saw this film on the 12th. It has taken me days to figure out how I wanted to review this film, to give it body and proper critique and not just say it sucks and calling it a day. I wanted to be able to explain exactly why it sucks. While you are going to hear me barrage this film with my negative critiques, I want to stress now why this film isn't my traditional kill it with fire review. I reserve that special and very fun rating for films that I have a deep-seated hatred for. Films that are so bad you could talk for hours about just how bad they are. Their badness angered you and made your blood boil. You couldn't wait to rip them apart and it felt so good to do it. While those are negative emotions, they are emotions nonetheless, and so at least those films were able to get such an emotional response from me. Fantasy Island didn't do any of that. Now, while critiquing, I'm going to get mad because I'll be forced to analyze this crap, but while watching this, I was so bored out of my mind it was almost offensive. This film doesn't have a long runtime, and yet it felt never-ending. Every word, every twist, every moment was yawn-inducing, and so while it sucks to hate a film, to bore me is far worse, and for me, practically a cardinal sin when it comes to movies. Blumhouse, or however you pronounce it, is a very hit-or-miss production company. They will either give you brilliant horror films full of depth and fright, or you're going to get a film that was produced while the company was sitting on a wad of cash and didn't feel like it needed more but decided what the hell, and so they went and made a movie that proved no one proofread it once. Fantasy Island is classified as a horror film, yet nothing about this film fits or is deserving of the horror genre title. You have a film with a number of comedic actors and a script that is overflowing with comedic dialogue, none of which lands. So you'd think the film is trying to go for a horror comedy, but ends up being the kind that forgot the horror. At some points, I was almost reminded of Club Dread, but Club Dread is actually good. Every moment of this film is a setup to a joke with no punchline. Jokes are being thrown left and right, and I sat there confused because I was so sure I had come to see a horror film. I sat there bored off my ass, just dying to go home. For a moment, I even contemplated leaving, something I haven't done since I Feel Pretty. We have a number of good actors, none of which belong in this film, but then again, the film shouldn't exist. After just watching Ryan Hansen and Jimmy O Yang in Like a Boss a couple weeks ago and hating their characters, to suddenly see them back together again, but for a horror film that acts as a comedy, had me instantly in a bad mood. I enjoy these actors, but seeing them appear together so often, this isn't the first time, is bugging me, and while their characters have chemistry, they again have no place in this film. The directing and cinematography of this film are bland and insignificant. There is no cinematography to speak of. There are no intricacies, no special tricks or lighting, nothing to even create a good atmosphere. Sometimes you can shoot a film in a very simple way, but in doing so, it allows other things within the film to be highlighted, so it makes this decision smart. This was ridiculously simplistic, just a basic shoot and record. It feels like the director said action and just walked away and left the cameras running, and then they just edited whatever was recorded later, not really caring. The script is the most criminal part of the entire project. We have boring characters and a supremely stupid and illogical script that provides two plot twists no one needed, no one cares about, and neither makes sense. Time for those spoilers. So a bunch of people sign up to go to an island to have their fantasies fulfilled. They sign up of their own choosing and come of their own free will. Then it's revealed it's not their own fantasies being fulfilled, it's someone else's and they're a part of it. Well, that's not entirely true because their fantasies were getting fulfilled. So that's twist number 1. And it's already boring. Twist number 2 reveals Lucy Hale's character to be the one whose fantasy is at the center of it. She wanted revenge. Here's where things get idiotic. But firstly, while I believe Lucy Hale is a lovely actress, she is terrible in horror roles. She is terrible at appearing threatening or imposing. If her character had me tied to a chair, I'd be doing a Harley Quinn in Birds of Prey and rolling my eyes and screaming about how boring and predictable this was. It's revealed that Hale's character Melanie wants revenge on all these characters for the death of a guy she went on one date with. Up until this point, you felt sympathy for her. The bullying she endured at school, we could all relate to that. But then when you realize she came here to torment and kill a bunch of innocent people, most of whom had no responsibility in the death of this guy she hardly knew, I mean, only one did, and it was an accident. All of this for a guy you went on one date with? She really was Psycho Stalker Girl. It's revealed Gwen, played by Maggie Q, accidentally started the fire that led to the young man's death when she left a stove unattended. Patrick, played by Austin Stowell, was the first officer on scene, and JD, Hansen, and Brax, Yang, were the young man's neighbors who didn't save him but also didn't know he was even home. So let's break this down. Gwen has some honest guilt, as it is her actions that caused the fire, though it was an accident, but the others are not at all guilty. On top of that, there is absolutely no way for Melanie to know anything about these other characters. She could have found out about Gwen from the news when they reported how the fire started. That makes sense. But there is no way she would have known or found out who was the officer on duty outside the building that night holding back the crowd, or what part he played in the series of events, and considering she only met the guy once, the guy who died, there is no way she could have known who his neighbors were and if they were home during the fire and whether or not they checked on him. But then there's the character of Sloane, played by Portia Doubleday, Melanie's school bully. Melanie wants revenge on her for the bullying, fair enough, but the rules of the island say you only get one fantasy, and yet Melanie is in actuality getting 2. So there goes that rule. Need I remind you, this is all because she got stood up by a guy she went out with once because he was burning to death in a fire. She managed on the first date to take a selfie with him and make it her phone wallpaper. She printed it and had the picture framed. This girl is quite literally mentally unhinged, though possibly due to a therapist who I suspect used unethical practices on her. Oh wait, she also gets revenge on him during this film, so technically that's 3 fantasies she got. Rules are made but never followed. Her entire character follows a very illogical trope in low-quality horror films where the killer is revealed towards the end, and with that is shown to be a highly unstable, non-functional person. For example, they did this back during the first Urban Legends film. If a person is mentally unhinged or suffering from a break with reality or some form of personality disorder, they are incapable of pretending to be high-functional, rational people. But in every single film like this, they go an entire film acting perfectly sane until the time has come for them to drop the charade and go full-blown psycho on everyone's ass. It's not just tiring seeing films do this, it holds no basis in reality and certainly doesn't add up in this film. Because this character by the end isn't just unhinged, she is completely detached from reality. So there is no possible way she should have been able to play up such an act of just being one of the group without having the odd crack here and there. As I mentioned earlier, these people personally looked this place up and signed up for this, but Melanie is making it seem like she somehow got them here when the film pretty much states that's not true, so it's one more aspect that never makes sense. We're never told she set them up or that she tricked them into coming, nothing like that. Could have done a fake competition like in I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, but nope. So instead, it's more an accident that the very people she wanted revenge on happened to be traveling to the same place as her, but she was well aware of this. What? And even though the island can make anything happen. Goons had to actually go and trick Sloane to coming to the island and then abduct her, as opposed to every other scenario where the island just magically makes things appear. This is a confusing mental loop I don't want to get stuck in. The film, of course, tells us this island has a power source, a giant gem of sorts that gives the island its power, because that, of course, makes a ton of sense. Oddly enough, it's one of the more logical parts to this story. When we see each person's fantasies in full swing, I wasn't bothered, though the fact they all had twists or consequences for no honest reason was getting ridiculous. As the story moves forward, everyone's fantasies locations come together, meaning they are all taking place at the same location, yet the locations change, which is doubly confusing. There was no grand explanation or something to keep them separate. All the fantasies end up overlapping in very strange ways. I had expected or hoped that it would be depicted similarly to 2017's The Endless, where people are trapped inside these invisible dome-shaped barriers across a large stretch of land, and under each sphere, the people inside are stuck in time loops, but the loops and the people inside them are stuck in certain locations, and no one can move between them except those who aren't stuck in the loops. Had this film done something more like that, it would have at least appeared interesting and as though some effort was made, and the plot had some intricacies, but nope, no such luck. I mean, they never understand why this island has power or how it technically is meant to work, but whatever. Like the fact that every fantasy has a negative or they don't play out how you expect them to. I mean, so if Melanie is going there, then that would mean that all her fantasies are going to backfire. That's something she should know, so that doesn't make any sense either. But then it's never explained why the fantasies backfire. Why do they have like a genie wish gone wrong, which we've seen in things like Wishmaster, or hell, even Charm did it, where you go to a genie, you ask for a wish, and if we look at Wishmaster, one particular wish was a woman said, "I wish to be beautiful forever," and she was turned into a mannequin. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like that, where everything has a trick to it. It's not following the carefully word, it's all about, you know, interpretation, but it's never explained why that is the case. You know what I mean? The film ends with a confusing set of events that I'm trying to figure out but can't quite make work in my head. It seems throughout this film, every time I thought I had an idea, a logical idea of where the story was going, I was proved wrong and provided with something insanely stupid and boring instead. Melanie looking at the frame picture I thought meant her fantasy was to see her dead brother or dead fiance, then her bully is being tortured by her, and we see a video of Sloane having an affair, so I thought for a second, oh, maybe Sloane slept with Melanie's man. But nope, this is all just about school. Even dumber is the fact Melanie spent this entire torture scene acting completely unaware and oblivious, and then acting like she's scared and this isn't what she wanted. But thanks to the stupid reveals and twists, this scene no longer makes sense. She knew what this island was, she knew everything, so who was she performing for? Not Sloane, because Sloane couldn't see her. Obviously the audience, but that doesn't make any sense because that would have to involve a fourth wall break, and there wasn't one. Yes, she was recording the moment, but again, in hindsight, it makes no sense. Nobody thought anything in this film through at all, and it frustrates me to no end. Going into this, I didn't realize it was based on the TV series. Learning this after the fact made me far more upset by this film. To realize they took a fun show and turned it into this crap, second-rate comedy crap that dares call itself a horror film is just insulting. The references to the TV series, including the iconic "the plane," had me sinking into my chair trying to hide my embarrassment like completely like this in the cinema. The only thing I liked about this film is that without trying, without any effort, it actually showed the realities of blended families and depicted an openly gay man who wasn't being portrayed as a stereotype, which is a rarity these days. He was just a guy like any other guy, doing his thing, being himself, and he happens to be gay. It's such a small thing, and yet this shitty film managed to pull this off when big budget films with large audiences opt for stereotypes, always depicting gay men as hyper-feminine, flamboyant, wearing skimpy outfits and hitting on every man with a pulse. While some do that, movies need to stop portraying all gay people as the same. As Brack says, I have layers, and it's true. I can't believe of all the things this film did, this was the one thing it got right, but it won't save it. To repeat myself, this was a bland, boring, unimaginative, idiotic, convoluted mess of a film that shouldn't have been made, and I deeply regret having wasted my cinema points on this film. I was right to not waste money on it, but it made me even regret using my points and seeing this for free. I could have used those points to go and see Sonic, so I'm kicking myself right now. This is the worst horror film I have watched this year. It's an insult to horror films, and it makes the Banana Splits movie look good, and that is saying something. At least that film had the decency to be trashy enough to let me hate it. This film couldn't even give me that. I mean, I'm hating it right now while I review it, but by the time I'm done, I'll have forgotten it even exists and forgotten I ever saw it, because despite my many criticisms, there is nothing to remember about this film, and that is just sad. You know, with a lengthy venom-spitting review like this, you'd think it would still be worthy of a Kill It With Fire review, but no. Films that I have given Kill It With Fire to in the past are films that I can still sit down with people, make fun of, laugh about, and just, you know, have me on a podcast or have me on your channel, and I will bitch about it for 1 to 2 hours. And I can do that. And as much as I can trash those films and I hate them, because I do hate them, I have this kind of respect for them that they could get that reaction out of me. That you gave me a lot of material to work with. It's bad material, but I respect that. But being so bad and boring that by the time I get home, I don't want to review you, I don't want to think about you, I don't care about you. The fact that when I left the movie, usually while I'm in the movie, I'm kind of thinking about how I'd review it, because I'm like, oh, I really like this, or I really hate this, and so I'm kind of committing it to memory so I know to talk about it later. But with this, I wasn't doing any of that. I was kind of just going into my own fantasies in my head and just playing out scenarios, or it's just like, oh yeah, I gotta work out when I get home, like doing my shopping list in my head, shit like that. Because this film wasn't giving me anything, not even anything to want to trash. And as soon as I got out of the movie and I'm like, how would I review this? And I'm like, well, it's a movie, it exists. That was about all I could think of. That was it. And that is really, really bad. There are films that I don't know how to review because they're very complex, and that's different. That's more like, I can't completely comprehend the material you have provided for me, and so I would rather just leave it be instead of trying to figure it out when I know that I can't. That doesn't mean I dislike or anything, it just means that source material was a bit difficult for my brain to comprehend. But this, I wasn't scared, I didn't jump, nobody jumped. I would have killed for a jump scare, just one, and I didn't get any. You know, I kind of feel like everybody complaining about jump scares in films are responsible for this. They're like, oh, so many jump scares. Well, this one didn't have any. Okay? I like jump scares, and this could have benefited from at least one of them. But then again, since this whole film feels like a comedy, having any jump scares wouldn't even have felt right. Why is this called a horror film? It's horrifying that they think it's a horror film. It's horrifying it exists, but it's not a horror film. Jesus Christ. I went to bed that night. No nightmares, no nothing. I didn't feel anything. I went about it the next day. I'd pretty much already forgotten about it. It's why it took me so many days to sit down and review it, because I was struggling to even remember what happened in it because I just didn't care. But like I said, I'm really trying hard to do my reviews this year, so I really had to sit, and it took me all day to figure out what the hell was I going to say about this movie, but I did it. But anyway, I'm done bitching, done ranting, venting, whatever you want to call it. I am going to go back to editing the latest episode of Are You a Movie Oracle? I would much rather be stuck in front of the laptop editing a game show episode than doing anything else. So that's what I'm going to go do. Thank you so much for watching this review. Please comment down below if you have seen this film and tell me what you thought about it. Or if you don't plan on seeing this, tell me why. And also, if some people I know haven't even heard of this, so tell me if you're one of those people. Thank you as always to my amazing patrons. I have been working on that behind the scenes of my game show. I've been slaving away on it. It's probably going to be terrible, but it's coming soon. So be patient, it'll happen. But thank you guys as always for the support, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!